Vamos a proseguir. Si pueden cerrar puertas.
Right, let's resume.
Simplemente es un público muy vivo.
Our audience
Estamos en la idea
is,
de la posibilidad y que ha estado presente en lo
En
que
lo que
acabamos
acabamos
de
de
recoger
y
y ahora
we are
pues
very
es un honor
present
presentar
after
a
what
José Luis
we've
Sastre,
heard.
quien también, porque las conversaciones
Oh,
antes
we do
podrían sido
apologize, we
todas,
cannot
eran
hear.
unas ideas de conversación y desgraciadamente María Pajés, por una cuestión de lo vulnerables efectivamente que somos, pues ha sufrido un pequeño accidente físico y no puede estar con nosotros, pero aquí tenemos a José Luis, a quien invitaba a reflexionar o articular ese nosotros rebelde, ¿no? Diferente al que necesariamente se nos impone. Y José Luis, por quien no lo conozca, yo creo que los que somos de España, pues muchos le escuchamos, le vemos, es periodista, es escritor, y entiende sobre todo el periodismo como Camus lo entendía, no como un oficio de registro, sino como ese acto de resistencia, como una forma de negarse a mirar hacia otro lado. José Luis ha construido una trayectoria en esa tensión entre la lucidez y el compromiso, es decir, la verdad y saber que la verdad incomoda. Es alguien que no solo habla de rebeldía, sino que la practica a la vez, y con él os dejo.
Hola. Lo primero ha sido decidir dónde me tenía que poner, porque fue una conversación con Mar. Y sentarme ahí solo con todos vosotros me pareció un poco raro, era como esperando a Godot. Y Godot no me va nunca. Así que, no sé, supongo que también...
We cannot hear properly. We are very sorry. I'm sure our technical colleagues are helping us. It's a great pleasure to be in Menorca today, and it's great being here. I pose myself some questions as a journalist. We do apologize, we cannot understand.
Porque yo soy un lector, un lector de Camus como periodista, como dramaturgo, como ensayista, y sobre todo como cronista que supo escribir una crónica de su tiempo, pero que en realidad es una crónica de nuestro tiempo. Una de las cosas que más me asusta de leer a mí es como encontrar sus textos del año 44, cuando el mundo se acababa de asomar, todavía estaban sientes heridas, espantos de una magnitud inimaginable, fue capaz de escribir su tiempo con una lucidez completa. El traductor no... Tengo que hablar más despacio. Yo quizá. Tengo que quitarme la diadema. Y hablar solo por aquí. Vaya, por Dios. Entonces ya no voy a andar. ¿Mejor sí? Vale. ¿Traductores o solo el francés? Gracias.
Thank you.
Soy universitario. Cuando iba a venir aquí me preguntó...
When I came here, the idea was to talk about what does being rebellious mean. And it's offending revolution, right? And Camus said, I wasn't sure whether I had understood the concept properly. When we talk about rebellion, we don't think about revolution, right? I was thinking about the difference between revolution and rebelliousness. And sometimes, often, I tell myself that we are repeating what was obvious, the things that we took for granted. Now the time has come. When we express things, we reaffirm them in our thought. So revolution is done collectively, and rebelliousness is individual. I have thought about the previous dialogue. The idea of community is underlying in this concept because it's impossible to be rebellious without knowing who we are. And this is one of the issues I wanted to share with you. Rebellion, even though revolution needs the construction of everybody's effort, maybe an interest, and maybe this is the actual difference. Revolution fights towards a common enemy. It's a single objective, and rebellionless is individual within each member of society. I don't know whether you can be selfish and rebelliousness at the same time. I guess not. Being a rebel entails or needs a personal attitude affecting injustices, affecting others like you. In order to be a rebel, you need to have a just vision of the world, because the rebel is not an anarchist. The rebel fights to change the order. He or she is not aspiring to an anarchic, chaotic world. No, on the opposite. The rebel requires an ordered world. The rebel, differently to the revolutionary, has an idea of community. And it's impossible to have this idea of community without knowing what is fraternity. Antonio mentioned Foucault when he said that friendship is a way of living. I don't know whether they are synonymous countries, fraternity and friendship, but surely they cannot be understood one without the other. The first the question is, who are we? Who are we today without the need of being too transcendental? The famous, when L'Homme Révolté was published, Sartre and Camus were the protagonists of one of the most important intellectual differences of the past century, and Camus was pinpointed as a code philosopher. He was accused. It's not what really captivated me by Camus is that he was able to pronounce the most profound philosophical principles from the most simple formulations. When he says after the World War II in 1944 that they don't want any recognition, and the hard peace will be about doing what they did. I don't need to go to Socratic, Schopenhauer, Nietzsche without renouncing to any of their teachings, obviously. But in order to answer who we are, I wouldn't like to go to Kant. I can only look into myself in the mirror and sleeping in peace, going to bed. I work in funny hours, and this is probably part of the judiciary or the. I need to have peace in order to go to bed peacefully. And I guess this has to do with the idea of the good and evil, the idea of justice, the idea of the Camusian obligation, or it has to do with who we are, what we want to do, and the Camusian must, or it's about finding out who we are in this apocalyptic world, right at the border of an imminent third world war. If it's not a new war, it's the tariffs. If it's not, it's a step back on the democratic advancement, and now hantavirus. Before we were talking about fear, I would like to include hate. Today, we are building political projects that are very attractive, more and more attractive, because they are being built against other promises and other principles on accomplished promises. In this constantly changing world, near reaching annihilation every 5 minutes, all of us submitted on telephone alert of a globalization going far beyond globalization. Who on earth are we? Why is it worth being a rebel today? I formulated a few principles. They are not too complex, but that help me, and they help me know which are the foods I'm standing up. Number one, knowing which is our place, where I am. When Cynthia said we're not going to change the world, but it'd be great if at least with a fraternal bond we could improve our present times. I referred to The Candide by Voltaire. He encourages us to look after our garden, and when he was wondering whether it was feasible to be an optimistic, in the end, the candidate says, look after your orchard. So I need to understand which my orchard is and who is inside my space. I believe this is an idea of rebellion. And I was looking at, listening to my previous colleagues reading, stopping time, watching a long movie, listening to a full song on Spotify. Yeah, you're laughing, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. Having the mobile in silence and ignoring it. What have they given us? Why are we building ourselves like this? Why can we not build our identity in different manners? In Valencia, and later in Jatova, a little town, I told them that every morning when I go to my workplace, I am facing a new apocalyptic menace. One day you need to relocate the Strait of Hormuz. The next day, what's happening in Crimea. Now you gotta track a ship uh, arriving to the Canary Islands. And this lady says, I live in a village. This idea of Armageddon, I'm not suffering it really because Donald Trump is really far away from me. And I understood what she meant. But this unease is with all of us. It doesn't has to do, it's not related to this physical space, but a mental space. Where are we and who we are? So, in front of this magnitude of the world problems, what can we do? The second idea is, what does it mean to be a rebel today? Have we maybe reached to the point that we need to defend institutionality? Does it mean that now rebellion is defending the EU? Is that feasible? Maybe yes. Plenty of voices want to destroy this world because they don't want to do it. They want to destroy the values of which this world was built. And this entails a self-critical reflection. Plenty of the things that have allowed us amazing progress have happened from some ideas which were not funded properly or attractively enough by some people. Plenty of people have been lost along the way. Is it far right everybody voting for Vox in Spain? Wow, great question. I don't really know what it is, but it makes me feel unease. The idea of Europe is my place.
Me siento un poco extraño,
I feel a little bit
reivindicando una idea que
strange
empezó
vindicating an
en la
idea
década
that
del
was
50,
began
después
to
de
be
la
built
Segunda
in the
Guerra Mundial.
50s after the
Es
Second
posible
World
que el
War.
futuro esté, que el
It's
progreso
possible
esté
that
en una
future
idea que ya
will come
pensábamos
with an
consolidada.
idea that we thought it had been
Es posible que
consolidated
ser
already.
demócrata
But maybe
sea
being
o
a
inicie así
Democrat, it is
un
or
acto
it
de rebeldía.
begins to be an act of rebellion.
Estoy siendo dramático,
I
tremendista
am being dramatic,
o no.
a
Vengo a compartir
pessimist, or maybe
reflexiones,
not. I'm just
preguntas,
here to
inquietudes.
share
No
questions,
esperéis ninguna respuesta, por
things that
favor.
are worrying me.
Desde luego
Don't
que la tengo.
expect any
Lo que tengo es un
answers.
estado de ánimo,
Unfortunately, I don't
un
have them, but I
desasosiego,
do have a
que
state
me
of
lleva a
mind,
hacerme todas estas
a
preguntas.
certain
Y
unease
quizá, y
that
ahora bajaré cuando baje,
encourages
pensaré,
me to
pensaré,
pose myself all
ya no
these
sé si habré
questions.
dejado alguna idea.
And then I'll say, have I
Lo
really
siento, creo que no va a
left
ser
any
así.
ideas?
Tampoco quiero
Sorry,
convertir un
maybe
desasosiego.
it won't be. I don't
Pero es que
only
esto es
want to
verdad, honestamente.
share with you
Me
this
parece llegado a la
feeling of
conclusión de
unease,
que
but
ser un
honestly,
europeísta,
I believe
tener
that
claros cuáles
being
son los valores
A
sobre los que
European
se
and
construyó
understanding
la
what are the
comunidad
values upon which
es el valor de
the
la
European
fraternidad,
community was
es
built,
ahora
it was
mismo lo que
fraternity.
implica ser
And right
humano.
now, this
Y
entails
después
being
tener
a
clara
rebel.
la
And
idea del
then
deber.
knowing
Hablo mucho de
exactly
Camus
all
por la
about
idea de
the
justicia,
must and the idea,
del
the
deber,
Camusian idea of
esa cosa tan
the
sencilla que antes decía de
very basic
hacer lo que tenemos que hacer.
idea of
Y es verdad que la historia,
doing what we are
las generaciones
due
que nos
or
precedieron,
meant to be
puso a
doing.
gente más y menos formada, gente con más y
We
menos
had
valores.
people
Muchas
messages
veces
that
si se van a
are not
dormir
related to
viendo el
us.
teléfono
You
móvil,
go to bed by looking
tienen una
to your
sensación
screen and you
más
have this
acelerada todavía de desasosiego,
sensation of
de
unease. It's even
desesperanza.
more highlighted
Y sin
of
embargo,
despair.
¿por qué miramos? ¿Por qué seguimos mirando
And
con esa
why do we
frecuencia al
keep
teléfono?
looking at our screens
Hay gente que antes
constantly?
decía,
Before, some people said, well, the system, it
Claro,
builds
ese
up,
sistema es el capitalismo.
system
Este
is
capitalismo
capitalism.
tecnológico
But this technological
que tantas
capitalism
veces criticamos,
that we so often criticize,
¿cómo ha llegado a este punto?
how has
¿Cómo
this
controla la voluntad?
present happened, how it controls our
¿Cómo
will?
puede ser que la idea de
How
comunidad,
could it be that the idea of
de esa
community
fraternidad,
and
de ese vínculo de
fraternity
vecindad,
and
que es
this
una palabra que
link
deberíamos utilizar
with
más,
our
fraternidad en el
neighbors
sentido más
in the sense,
hermoso?
in the most
Esta calle
beautiful
aquí
way?
de San Luis, cuando venía para
This
acá,
street here in San
hay
Luis, when I
gente
was
que se
walking
conoce, que se
here,
saluda, que va
there are
a la
people in
compra, que
this
compran del mismo,
vicinity saying hi to
la
each other
misma
every
señora de los
morning,
bollos, el mismo
in
señor
the
de la carne,
same
el mismo
proximity,
supermercado, esa idea de
the
barrio,
same
cómo
supermarket,
puede
the
ser
same
que dejamos
bakers,
de,
this idea of
llegó un momento en que
neighborhood.
dejamos que
How
la
could it be?
tecnología y el
When did
teléfono
we
que llevamos
stop
todos en el bolsillo nos aleje de la
saying
fraternidad?
hi to our neighbors?
He dicho que no
When
quería
did
seguir
we
con esta
allow our
liza, me estoy
smartphones
alejando de ese propósito,
to
pero
steal this from us?
ser rebelde es preguntarse
Being a rebel
de qué manera
means
contribuyes tú, cada uno de
asking
nosotros,
yourself,
a esta
how do
construcción.
you add
Y sin ser
upon this
ilusionistas,
building
sin ser
of the
iluso,
world without being naive?
preguntarse de qué manera podemos
Asking yourself,
no
how
abstraernos de eso. Es
can we
imposible
not
frenar la
only
revolución de la
abstract,
inteligencia
it's
artificial,
impossible to stop
sino
AI,
aprovecharlo en la
the
construcción
evolution
de una
of
idea
advancement of
fraternal
technology,
bien.
but it's all
Yo mando
about
notas con mis
sensing
amigos de 10
the
minutos.
other skins.
Sé que
I
es un
leave
esfuerzo,
10-minute
sé.
voice
Ellos
messages
hacen
to
el
my
favor de
friends.
escucharme
It's
a la velocidad de
horrendous.
2, por supuesto.
They listen to me at
Yo
the
creo que así estoy aprovechando la
super
tecnología.
fast speed.
De verdad lo
We
pienso.
can use
Y pienso que grupos de WhatsApp,
technology
hay
to
cuantas
build
veces necesitemos.
fraternity.
A ver si nos
How
vemos cuando nos
often do we
veamos
say, hey,
y
let's
postergamos
meet each
porque
other?
de
When are
verdad
we going to
son las 12
see each
mesas
other?
en una
And
tarde Mediterráneo, por ejemplo,
we
con el
postpone
Mediterráneo de fondo. Eso le
the
postergamos
great,
a unos cuantos que en
wonderful
realidad desengañémonos
debate on the table.
de aprovechar el tiempo porque efectivamente pasa.
And
Pero
listen,
bueno,
make the most because time
suena
does
casi
fly.
como si fuera un premio de consolación, pero
It's a sort of
a mí me vale
consolation second
poder
prize,
enviar
but it's
notas a mis
okay for
amigos
me to
con
leave
notas tan
voice
largas o compartir
messages
con ellos hasta un meme.
and
Quiero
sharing
decir
with
que yo no soy
them
en absoluto un enemigo de la
a little
tecnología, si no
meme.
estaría barriendo contra mi propio tejado. Yo soy
I do
periodista y
use
necesito
technology.
informar y
I'm a
necesito
journalist. I
llegar a
need
la
to be
gente
informed
a
and
través del
reach
teléfono móvil.
my
Digo, ¿de qué
audiences
manera
through
podemos colaborar
smartphones,
antes,
of
antes
course.
de que
But
eso
how
se
can we
propague?
incorporate this to us before these technologies
Hay
dominate
otra
our
pregunta
beings, our thought? And there's another
sobre la
question
rebeldía.
on rebellion.
He intentado contar
I've
quiénes somos
tried
nosotros como
to
premisas
explain
básicas de
who
qué es
we
un
are
rebelde
as a
y cuáles son los
premise,
requisitos
defining what a
que
rebel
necesitaría la
is, and
rebelión.
what are the requisites
Y
that
llegados a este punto,
rebelliousness
la
implies.
pregunta,
And having reached this point
¿quiénes
comes the
son hoy los
question,
rebeldes?
who are today the
Durante mucho
rebels?
tiempo la rebeldía se
For a
asoció
long
a
time,
la
rebelliousness
Sorbonne,
has
a
been
mayo del 68,
related to
a las
May
grandes
68,
universidades,
the
a los limpios
Sorbonne in
guerrilleros durante
Paris,
el
the great
16,
universities, those one running in
la
front
gente
of
joven,
policemen.
o
Youngsters
mucha gente
today,
joven hoy,
or
¿con qué
plenty of
identifica?
our young generations, what do they relate
¿Qué ha
rebelliousness
tenido que
with?
ocurrir? ¿Qué ha sucedido
What have
para que
we
hoy la idea de rebeldía
needed
esté
to
para mucha
witness
gente y
so that the
especialmente
idea of
muchos
rebelliousness
hombres
for a
jóvenes
lot of
en
young
pulsiones
men
autoritarias?
move towards
¿Por qué
authoritarianism?
se asocia hoy la rebeldía a eso?
Why are we associating
¿Cuántos fracasos han
this
tenido que ocurrir
to
hasta
that?
ahora?
How many
¿Cuántas complacencias a discursos
defeats, how many
autocomplacientes?
complacencies or
¿Cuánta gente
self-complacency
que ha sabido ver ahí que
discourses,
había un
and how
nicho
many
y explotarlo?
people has seen
Falleció el otro día Soledad Gallego Díaz.
Soledad Gallego
Recuperamos en la radio
Diaz
un
died the other
fragmento
day in a radio.
que ella, que
We
fue la gran
listened,
cronista de la revolución,
Self-Satisfaction Women, sorry. She was
advertía a los jóvenes.
warning
La
the
primera vez que este país
youngsters.
pudo votar,
The first time that we could
votó
vote
en
in
masa
this
por el
country,
franquismo.
we all voted
Aquella gente
against
que pudo votar,
Franco.
aquellos
Those who
jóvenes que pudieron
managed,
votar
those
por primera vez
youngest
en sus
who
vidas
managed to
y que
vote
venían
for
de
the first
conocer
time
la
in
vida
their
más
life
cruda de la
and
dictadura,
who had
votaron en
suffered the
contra del
most
franquismo.
horrible
La
reality
pregunta
of our
que subyace es,
dictatorship, voted
¿por qué
against
tanta gente joven, por qué tantos
Franco.
chicos jóvenes
So,
jóvenes
how
hoy
many young men today
relativizan el peso de la dictadura
are
y se ven atraídos
relativizing or
por un discurso autoritario? Muchos no.
are feeling
El
attracted
riesgo que corremos
by
toda mi generación y las generaciones que me
authoritarianisms?
preceden es pensar, etiquetar
my generation can label and use the concept of generation as if everybody thought in the same manner. I do share ideas with the youngsters and the elderly who have nothing to do with generational fact. I am radically in a totally different group, people being who were born in 1983. But this can be used to establish this premise. People between 18 and 24. I wouldn't like to give the percentage. I can't remember it properly.
No cree que sea tan malo una dictadura.
So there is a percentage of the population who doesn't believe that dictatorship is not that bad. And how can people understand that the idea of rebellion is associated to this? And how can different people understand it in such different ways when we're talking about the same, very same word? And I'm here to ask questions because I don't know the answers. I don't know what the answers are. Many political parties, the democratic classical ones, I'm sure they have failed in many ways because many people have lost their hopes and have no excitement about this, and they didn't know how to react on time. What does this mean? Well, it's also not fair to generalize, which is what I'm doing right now, because in fact, there were many people who really fought really hard, but they didn't achieve the good results of democracy. There was also corruption, lack of discredit, and of course also the media. And I don't want to get rid of that responsibility. Of course, many people don't believe the media anymore, and we are also responsible for that. So what to do then? My only answer for that is to continue working. There's a canon of journalism. I'm not going to refer to institutionalization, but it's about a construction of the world in a way that we will all be able to understand each other. I know I have no answers. There are moments where I'm asphyxiated by a feeling of despair, and sometimes I feel it's not worth it. But then, yes, there are other moments where I do feel that it is worthwhile, that we really continue, we need to continue explaining things from the perspective of Camus. I really go back to Camus very often because in his essays, in his novels, in many of his chronicles, we find the explanations of our world today, because those values that were built after the terrible Second World War are values that are still in effect, that are still totally actual. Isn't it a surprise to see that many years after that, we still need to defend and advocate for human rights and empathy, and that we feel lost or not knowing where to find our way? And then we need to come to Minorca to ask ourselves where the idea of rebellion is, or of I don't think the construction of future implies going back to the past, but in any case, I am sure I don't want the future to be built ignoring the achievements of the past, because many are still to be fulfilled. And as it was said today, we've come together here to rebuild utopia, and that's what we're doing, rebuilding our building again, reconstructing the building. And there's a single world that for everyone is clear, and for us the word is Europe, a fraternal Europe, with the skin, without being too utopian, too naive, but we cannot resign a little bit of a utopia that will allow us to create a future and a present where we can understand each other. And well, as I work in the radio, I feel we don't have much time left, particularly because I'd like to take some words from the floor. So, the first book I read by Camus was l'homme révolté, the rebel. So he started saying, reading that sentence, saying that there was the rebel, the man that became a rebel. And when there's an interview, we're often asked, what are the books that marked your life, or the films that marked your life? I don't like to be asked that questions because I don't know how to answer that. But I do know that this sentence in that book really changed the world, the way I stand in the world, and also the way I work, because it was a no by Camus, and it was a no reaffirming myself. A rebel man is a man that says no. And when I was preparing this discussion, that was going to be a discussion, a conversation with Maria, because this was not supposed to be a talk by myself, but with Maria. So when I was preparing this, I thought the Rebel, for me, was the key, essential book for such a talk. Rebellion is a characteristic of a man who is informed. The rebel will advocate for a human condition. Solidarity of man is composed on the idea of rebellion, because every rebellion has an idea of community. And I believe that rebellion appears whenever there's a no that overcomes us. We come to a point where we say, that's it, basta, this is it. Rebellion allows us to understand the place we occupy and how big it is, where the red lines are, what is the border of our own land. And we will also be willing to fight against that. So to know where the no is placed. So rebellion is knowing from what point we will start revolution. And there's no need for destroying the streets. It can be a very small rebellion, a small size rebellion. It can be at our own scale within ourselves. And Sandra, this morning, told me, Maria won't be able to be here with us today. And I said, do you think there will be a copy of a book that I can find, Nuptials? I think I was taking the wrong book. The best by Camus is not in his chronicles or essays. His best is in his Mediterranean spirit, the light, and on his childhood in Oman and Algeria. And I think the best by Camus is in his first works, in Nuptials. The moral teachings developed by Camus later on in incredible texts were already present in Nuptials in Tipasa. I didn't know. I thought, well, I don't know what I'm going to find here, because there are many descriptions, and in the end he talks about how to enjoy life. You shouldn't be embarrassed of being happy, and those who laugh are considered as idiots, but those who I consider idiots are those who don't. And he also explains that he understood what glory is. He says, the duty of being happy. I don't want to end this intervention. After everything I said, I wouldn't want to finish with such a plea, ignoring the reality of the world or naive. And well, I've been talking for like 20 minutes, and I'm sure I will very quickly look at the book to see what's been going on in Israel, with also what happened with the sheep, with Donald Trump said today, I don't want to be ignorant. I want to know what's happening. And I listen to those voices who hate. They shout very loud. We cannot ignore them. But I don't want to renounce, to deny happiness. Illusion they want to take illusion away from us. There are speeches in politics now that deny illusion and dispute happiness. Many people are angry. I'm not talking about Rosa Diez, who built a political party on the basis of anger, but many people are angry, and political speeches show this anger. But I think happiness is essential, the essential condition for rebellion today. Without giving up to put oneself in the dignity of people who are suffering the genocide in Gaza, for example, of those people who are suffering so much. So not giving up, looking to others. So we need to imagine those people who don't have a home, those who are displaced to secure territories that are then bombed once and again. We do not give up looking to the world. We must not give up our orchard, but we must not give up our happiness, because rebellion requires and needs our today more than ever.
Ay, lo que he echado de menos tener a María aquí.
I've really missed Maria today. Shall we take any questions? Sandra, do we have time for that?
Allí hay una.
Questions?
Hola, muchísimas gracias.
Hello.
Gracias a ti.
Thank you so much.
A ver, es una pregunta.
¿Cómo te llamas, perdón?
Eva.
Hola, Eva.
What's your name?
Soy
Eva.
profe
Hello, Eva.
en un instituto.
I'm a teacher in high school, and I think
Un poquito aquí hoy y al que
that,
todos deberíamos
well,
tener muy en cuenta es a esta gente joven.
it is precisely young people who are not here today but should be.
Y muchos de ellos
Many of them
nosotros,
need
de vosotros como medios de comunicación,
us and you,
para que
the media.
habláis muy claro de datos y de verdades.
They need you to state very clearly data and realities, because this question of what is rebellion right now is facing double situation where it's not clear what is false and what is true. So in this sense, communication is essential to be able to advance. And this is precisely what we're doing today here. So what would be your tips or guidance to the society in your quality of media experts in communication? Yes, I really hope we would be experts. Yes, this is what you are. I go to my high school, to my classes, and I face the teenagers, and I need to give instructions on how to talk to each other, because for them now it's just one side and the other, and it's really sad. We don't want to draw terrible scenes, or depict terrible scenes, but in any case, there's a lot of lack of communication, more than games or playing and coming close to each other. Well, okay, some reflections. the basis of what you're saying. When I'm talking about my unease and despair, and when I wonder if my job is worthwhile or not, well, it's because I have the feeling that a piece of data is not enough. Because when fake news started and so on, and also because, of course, citizens don't want to have that don't want to be confused, and many people have decided not to believe. And how can we work with this? Credibility is very difficult to obtain, and it's nevertheless destroyed in just a second. You may apply very professional criteria, but if you give just one piece of data that is not correct, your whole credibility falls down. So how can we fight against these preconceived ideas? These myths against migration have spread in ignoring the data, because there is a symbolic construction that creates a framework. So what can we do about all this? We need to give the specifics, the details of the data. So we do that, and sometimes things don't change in any case. So I also believe we might need to change narratives. We're watching reels on Instagram and a lot of series on Netflix. Perhaps if we use the mechanism of a different narrative of telling the story of people they can sympathize with, then I don't know, perhaps that could change the perception, the beliefs, so that those people can feel in the skin of those who are suffering beyond their race or their condition and so on. Perhaps that's the key, but I'm not sure. I cannot be sure. Thank you.
Hola, José Luis. Buenos días. Mi nombre es Ruth.
Hello, José Luis. Thank you very much. My name is Ruth. Thank you for your talk, the content and the message, and not giving up happiness or joy in spite of everything. I have a petition for the media, a request. The gaze on the world we all have is the one we receive through the media, and of course also through the filtrations on social media. And once, well, I'm not a journalist, I studied law, and there was a professor who just to say that good news are not news. So I don't know how you, from the offices of the media, can fight against the load of burden of catastrophic news, how you could counterbalance that with all the things that are happening in the world, very good news in the field of, for example, science or other areas. How could you do that to protect our mental health? Also, of course, we have Trump's tweet every morning on the media. Can we compensate that? How can we counterbalance that for the mental health of every of people? And the regime, the only regime I do is on media regime in order to protect my mental health, because I will drink a glass of wine, eat chocolate and everything. But you're working in the media. It must be really terrible to digest all that every day. In any case, I want to say is that I would limit my regime if I would also get pieces of news on more positive themes and topics, and it is the professionals in the media that need to work with that. That's my petition. That's my request. I suppose you understand it, right? Yes, of course I understand it. Leave the mic with Ruth, please, because I need to reply to this. I'm going to carry out an experiment with you. So let's imagine at 8 a.m., the moment when most people listen to the radio in this country. So I will not open with the latest tweet by Donald Trump. We don't always do, but let's imagine I don't. And now let's say that his tweet, he's saying that he's going to attack Iran. So prices of diesel will go up, the geopolitical map of the planet will change, and many new deaths. And also this will change your life. It will have a direct impact on you. Or I can open with that, or I can open with a discussion by 8 scientists who are on the radio talking about the latest the latest scientific advances and discoveries, and that, well, it's difficult for them to have funding, but that they are advancing and progressing. So I can open with that and make this a whole hour discussion. But please don't change your radio station after 5 minutes, because sometimes we request something, but then we don't consume that. Of course, you say that you're interested by good news. Of course, you are probably interested by that. So I understand that, but that's not the reality, because when I prepare my program, I'm not thinking how to make Ruth's breakfast impossible to digest. I always try to tell you what is happening without giving a catastrophic perspective on it, but I need to tell you what's happening. If there's a genocide, that's my duty. At the worst moments of the genocide, many of my people of my audience wrote to me telling me that they couldn't bear it anymore. I understand what you're saying. Of course, I'm not asking you to talk about birds and plants all the time, but not give us also good news, not only bad news. In my program, well, it lasts 6 hours, and I also talk about science, about cooking, and so on. But I also have to tell what's happening. Some people prefer to or choose us because of our perspective. When we're talking about objectivity and subjectivity, well, there's no objectivity. I have a specific way of looking at the world, at what's happening, but in the simplest, most honest way possible. This is my job. If there's a genocide, I have to inform you about this. Also, if there's if Trump publishes or posts a tweet, then I have to inform about this. Not all of them, because he's constantly posting. In the sports world, it's very clear. The sport and Mundo Deportivo reduce their sales whenever the Barcelona team loses the match, but they cannot tell the opposite if they actually lost. So that's the key. There's a very varied offer in the media. We don't tell the same things, and we don't tell things from the same perspective. Yesterday it was the inventors' saloon in Valencia. There were wonderful things there by 20-year-olds, but I will tell you about this and about other news. Well, I was not only talking about you, also all the media. You've been insulting me, and now you're saying something else. Just joking. I'm just saying that the radio is the one that does the less harm to our brain, because in terms of vital anxiety, TV images are worse. And also the radio is better. Yeah, you have to listen to Ruth. You should turn your radio on every morning. Yes, well, I think there was a very quick question over there. Yes, very quick. Also, because there are only 2 minutes left for the answer. My name is Karim. Hello, Karim. I have a question about what you said about young people and also the fact that they are disappointed with the political parties and also the institutions and so on. I don't know if this is related to this fact that we all want immediate answers. So also this immediacy, and this also affects political parties and perhaps for young people, it was a failure and they decide to vote for the opposite political party or the another one because you had only a couple of seconds to show that you're good in government. Another question, also joy and hope or illusion. In some parts of the world, it's make America first again. For other people, this is crazy, but for some people, this is what illusion or a dream feels like. Yes, of course, joy and the joy associated with those dreams is around these projects because they believe that the system hasn't given answers to them up to now. That's a country that is operating well in macroeconomic terms, but there are serious problems for young generations like housing. And then migration has been created as a common enemy. It's something that has been built on the basis of creating enemies in different communities and also denying other people. And the idea is to protect the purity of a community. And this is something that really is of concern right now. Very worrying. And this is why this kind of projects like Trump was created an illusion, a dream, a hope. I don't believe rebellion belongs to any political camp. This is human, simply human. But I'm saying that those who take profit of this discourse is those that have been able to place hope in the political field. But it's very strange to see how hope and illusion is created on the basis of hate and division. It's difficult, and it's difficult to understand the politics today. For me, I prefer Shakespeare than Foucault to understand politics because that's the basis of politics today. Those feelings, those human feelings. So, giving an answer to Eva's question, this is why we're not permeated by data because these courses are emotional now. And this means that many people who have been disappointed with the system receiving that, they haven't been able to achieve what they aspired for. What about immediacy? Well, those who have been governing up to now have had time. But I can tell you that immediacy does allow for the spread and dissemination of hated discourses. A couple of years there was assassination of a minor in an inland village in Spain, and the family had to go on the media to say that it was not migrants. The killers were not migrants. And that's terrible. When there's a tragedy, we need answers immediately. And journalism and quality journalism and looking for the truth requires time. I don't know what's happening right now. I need to stop, ask questions, prepare a whole story, and then when I have been able to confirm everything, I can tell people about it. And what happened in the floods in Valencia? Well, we saw that again. There are these fake news and that are used immediately to create and invade our brains, and that's how immediacy is taken profit of. Well, thank you very much. And thank you. Sorry that your Maria wasn't here, but thank you for your intervention today.